I've been thinking about the statement, the truth, that I'm not of this world, but I'm in it. And when you sit quietly and think about those words, and you meditate upon those words, it's quite profound. You begin to, you realize that you're here for 70, 80, however many years, and your entire existence is geared up. Everything is in place, isn't it? Your entire existence, you fall into that, and it's geared up to teach you, to shape you, in order to exist and survive and thrive in a world which you're not of, but you're in. So then you begin to think about and ask about the world that you are of, but are not in. And things begin to become a little bit more interesting when you begin to meditate like that. You begin to reflect upon the invisible realm. I'm sitting on a chair under a tree. There's a couple of dogs kicking about, some sheep in a field. My education was all about fundamentally geared up so that I would go to school, go to college, agricultural college, come home, and perpetuate something, the use of the world which I'm in but not of. And so one becomes familiar with it and its ways, and you just sort of slip into the program, into the matrix, call it what you like. You just sort of fall into that, and you get to the end of it, some of us, and you're left wondering, well, what was that all about? Well, it's all about taking a moment like this. It says an ancient king said that eternity, we all have a sense of eternity in our hearts. And so you ponder upon that, and you come back to this whole sort of spiritual idea, notion, truth about God. And it sends you on the most amazing journey, because many of us have had experiences that we can't quite answer satisfactorily. The seeing of angels and stuff happens in life which it's so transitory that you just park it somewhere and you carry on getting on in the world which you're not of. And yet these little moments in time occur to point you to the world which you are of, this sort of spiritual dimension. And because all being well, you've got an eternity ahead of you. But there's a part of me that is left wondering, well, just as I've invested many of my years in how to live, thrive, survive in the world around me, the one that I'm not of, perhaps I should consider investing some time in getting to know the world that I am of, this invisible spiritual world, this world where other creatures exist, angels, demons, whatever else, and so it's just fascinating to meditate upon. And it doesn't take long before other ideas come in, thoughts. I'm in this world, but I'm not of it. And so we need to get to know the world that we're of. There's obviously an origin to each and every human being that precedes birth. We obviously exist prior to being this sort of physical body that is created to live upon a planet with oxygen and so on and so on. But we came from somewhere else, didn't we? We came from another world, an invisible world. A world which, we describe as spiritual, heavenly, divine, where we speak of God, gods, the Creator. We speak of prophets and sages, God's Son, Jesus, His Spirit, and then all the other spirits that are His. And if we're created in God's image, then perhaps He's referring to the spiritual dimension. Perhaps He's referring to a being that is given to live, thrive and survive in the world that we are of. So we're this sort of interesting creature we're this eternal thing that's housed within this perishable, suit of bone and blood and flesh, and that the physical thing gets pushed around and bullied, doesn't it? And it's caused to become part of a machine almost that has no time for invisible things, these spiritual kingdom things like love. We need these physical suits in a sense to reveal love and righteousness and peace and joy. That's our purpose, isn't it? God gives us, each and every one of us, the right to become a son of God. And He talks about, one of the purposes of sending His Son was to reveal to mankind God. So in a sense, Jesus is, to all of humanity, an example of who and what we are intended to be. We're not intended to be at one another's throats. We're not intended to bully one another and be greedy and blah blah. We're not intended to oppress one another and put one another under occupation or into exile. We're meant to demonstrate to ourselves, but to each and every one, the love and peace and joy and righteousness, power, self-control. All of these invisible things. And that's, in a sense, why we need the bag of bones, for these invisible things to be seen and recognized. In a sense, the unredeemed human being is God's most misused creation, because it follows its own ideals and pursuits. It is, in a sense, anti-God, because it's simply there to serve itself. It hasn't laid its life down to serve others, and nor does it recognize or serve its creator. And yet here we all are. We have our putting the world to rights conversations. So if we're recognizing this world is wrong, perhaps that's because there's a part of us that's from another world that recognizes what is right. And God wants to give us his kingdom, and the way in which he gives his kingdom, which is power and strength and self-control, is through our accepting that we are in error. We accept that we are lesser and he is greater. We accept that we get things wrong, that we sin, and we turn back to him, and we thank him for sending his Son, who has redeemed us in every which way. What's required of us is that we believe that, and that God is given the opportunity to fill us with his Spirit, so that we're reconnected with him. In a sense, that connection has been broken. It's broken because we choose to allow it to remain so. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? We do have free will, but we also have this sense of eternity. We also have a conscience and awareness of what's right and wrong. And it's because of Jesus that we can, if we choose to, exercise our right to become sons of God, and to begin to learn what it is to live in the world from which we first came. So today, whilst I am in this world but not of it, it is my desire, and I hope it will become your desire, to learn more of the world which I am of. And in doing so, I hope that those of us who choose to journey that pathway will somehow make God known